Hey Fiona, my name is Thomas. How you doing today?
Hi, Thomas. Nice to meet you. I'm great.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I've seen the series a couple times now, and I had so much fun watching it, so I'm really excited to talk to you about it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Got a lot of questions, so I'm going to jump right into this. My first question is, I saw that you were also involved with the editing team of Inside Out 2. So I'm
Yes.
curious, having already worked in this universe, what was it like to go back for Dream Productions?
It was actually the other way around. So I was on like early stages of Dream, and then I moved over to Inside Out too. But yeah, I mean, it's a really fun world to live in and a fun world to edit. So yeah, what was fun about being within the same universe but doing these two different projects is they're the main characters are pretty different. I mean, of course, Riley's in both, but in terms of like who we're following in the mind, you've got the core emotions in the movie, and then you've got sort of Paula and the studio team uh, happening in Dream. So you're really getting to kind of explore different storylines and personalities. So yeah, that was cool.
Definitely. It's very cool. I definitely love the characters in this series, which brings me to my next question. There's a lot of really fun characters, and it's interesting that we're not exactly following emotions for the first time in this universe, which I found very cool. So I'm curious, out of all the characters that you had the pleasure of editing and working with, is there one that you related to the most, or one that you just enjoyed working on the most?
In Dream,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, I mean, Zenny's kind of a funny character. I definitely like enjoyed what he brought. It's not your typical kind of character that you see in Pixar, I think. So
No, not
he
at
had
all.
a unique kind of humor to him, and um, Richard, who did the voice for him, is. I mean, there's so many good improv actors on this show, and like as an editor, it is fun to see what kind of comedy tidbits they'll throw in as extra. And for him in particular, there was a lot of fun improv to play with. So, whether or not that ends up making Final Cut, it's certainly some of it does, but even when you just get to show the directors like, oh, I just kind of cut this all together, I cut that all together, and it might just make them laugh, or it might be something they want to use, or it might give them idea for, some other way to approach that beat. So, yeah,
Yeah. And
Zenny was fun.
yeah, he's a great character. And you mentioned like Final Cut and showing directors things that might make it, that not might make it. As the editor, it's your job to show that. So I'm curious, is there something you had to cut that was like really heartbreaking for you, whether it's a joke or a particular scene? If so, could you tell me a bit about it?
Oh, that's good. Trying to remember. There's so many things end up on the cutting room floor. There was one character, I that this was, as opposed to it being a gag that was cut, it was more like a whole character. So there used to be this sock puppet dolphin character, antagonist sort of character, and she was great, and she added a lot of drama, and there was a lot of like comedy to play with there, but ultimately we just needed to simplify the story. There was just
Mhm.
sort of too many threads going on. So um, that was like a pretty big thread that ended up, just, and that's pretty common to end up simplifying the story. I feel like, especially in animation, there's a lot of ideas and, early iterations. There's usually more on the screen than is needed for the sake of the story. So she ended up on the cutting room floor, but it was a funny character that Mike had come up with. It was like, when your teacher, like in kindergarten or something, like has a puppet and it's sort of like teaching you like
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking
kindergarten
about.
lessons. So that's who that was, and she sort of ended up having a mind of her own. But yeah, um,
It's interesting. I like that kind of character. You can put a lot of like dark humor there too, I think. I think that
yeah,
could
it
be
was
really fun.
totally dark humor, which I always get a kick out of. But yeah, you can't have it all. So.
Uh, It's unfortunate. Something I love about this series is like, you're following a director throughout all four episodes, and it brought up this idea to me about directing in dreams. So I'm curious, if you could pick any director to direct your dreams, who would you pick?
Hmm. Well, I hate having scary dreams, so not Gigi. Probably Janelle. She seems like the most uh in touch,
Level-headed.
yeah, in touch with like her person, and like she's really like trying to, get things figured out, and they seem kind of artsy but not as artsy as any. It's both valuable in terms of making progress in your life, because I mean ultimately that's what it is, right? Or your dreams are processing like your real life issues. So I feel like Janelle's probably got the best
Like
ideas for how to, process what's happened in your day and make that effective in your real life.
definitely agree. Definitely agree. And I'm Canadian. You're Canadian. We have to
Oh
talk about
no.
the Canadian boyfriend episode. It's my
Yes.
favorite. It's my favorite of the four. I loved it so much. I heard the Fort Town in the episode, and I lost my mind even more because I love Turning Red, another great Pixar movie. I'm
Uh-huh.
curious for you as a Canadian. Did you have any input on some of the stereotypes or some of the in jokes in there? Like there was a joke about walking like 5,000 kilometers that I absolutely loved. Did you give any input or any of your other fellow Canadians on the series give input?
Yeah, I think they did have a Canadian trust, I believe. That sort of went down before I was on the show. So they, I think, got all the Canadians at the studio together that they could, and just tried to, get some jokes going. I do recall we were recording um the Canadian boyfriend, and he was talking about his toque. Um,
Yeah.
so, but the way it was written on the page, like nobody knew how to pronounce it. So they were like, I got the dialogue back, and he was like, "Oh, something about my toque," and I'm like, "Oh, guys, no, it's a toque. We have to go re-record that."
That's good. If it makes you feel better, I didn't know how to say Took until like sixth, seventh grade. I saw the spelling. I'm like, that's how you say it. It's one of those weird words, you know?
It's definitely French leaning, so.
Oh, very much so, very much so. And there's four episodes. I'm curious, do you have a favorite scene from any of the episodes that was just like either really poignant or just really fun to work on?
Yeah, I got to do an early pass of Janelle's first dream for Riley. So the out of body dream.
Mm,
That was really fun. It felt like it was the first time Riley was getting a dream that helped her. And I think like seeing that character go in nervous and, not have that confidence that experience brings yet, but she goes with her gut and pulls it off, and it's kind of moody and there's tension and you don't really know what's going to happen, and then it ends up being a success.
yeah.
I just, the pacing of that was fun, and it was just sort of a feel good end to that scene, so I really enjoyed that.
It is a great scene. And you mentioned in this scene this is like the first real dream that you believe helps Riley. So I'm curious for you yourself, is there a dream that you vividly remember having a big impact on you? And if so, how was that?
It's funny. I was actually thinking about that this morning. I'm like, I don't know if it's because I'm well into adulthood now. I feel like I can't remember dreams anymore. As a kid, I would always remember, you kind of hold on to them and you have these recurring dreams, and I would think about them, months later. I feel like now if I wake up and something's a vivid dream, and maybe I'm still trying to hold on to it, or I'm trying to figure out what exactly happened, and then it just, as the hours go by, um it just sort of dissipates. So nothing that I can think of that's actively helpful for me, but there is one recurring dream I have that I would love to stop happening. It's that there's like gum stuck on all my teeth, and I just keep like trying to pull it off and I can't. So I'm not sure if that's helping me, but it is the only dream that like seems to be recurring in my adulthood. So,
Interesting. That's a very interesting dream. And I've actually had a very similar one from when I had braces. So it's funny
oh,
that you
really?
mentioned it. I remember
Well,
getting that in like seventh or eighth grade.
apparently there's a common dream that people have where all their teeth fall out. I don't have that one. Mine's gum on my teeth. It's just like all in my mouth. So I don't know.
I'm
I
happy
don't.
I don't have the falling out teeth one. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, that sounds worse for sure.
Sounds horrifying. And my last question for you before I go, I'm really curious if you could go and adapt Dream Productions for any other Pixar character and see what their dreams are like and what their mind is like, which one would you pick?
Oh, that's interesting. Um, well, my favorite film by Pixar is Ratatouille, so I'd probably pick Remy. I love food, and he probably dreams of food, so I think it would probably just be a nice time.
It's a great answer. And I don't know why, but I kind of had Ratatouille in the back of my mind when I'm watching. I'm like, that would be kind of cool to see because I think of like the scene in Ratatouille when you
I
go back
know.
to his childhood, and I'm like, you could adapt that to any character in that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Or even when he's like daydreaming and he's talking about, I forget what he mixes together, if it's like cheese and a strawberry or something, but he's just talking about food and it's kind of like a daydream and he's just, talking about his love for it. So I
yeah,
imagine a
I know
nice
exactly
dream
what you mean.
space to live in. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, and congrats on all the work for Dream Productions, Inside Out 2, and everything else you've done. I really did enjoy this. Thank you.
So much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Bye.
Bye bye. Again, lovely to be speaking with you again, and congrats on Dream Productions and everything you've done since then. I saw your IMDb and you've done some really cool stuff, Elemental, Inside Out, and now you've done this. So, congratulations. That's all awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to talk to you again.
It's good to talk to you as well. So, my first question is, like I said, I saw you worked on Inside Out too. So, coming from a big scale project like that to Dream Production, I'm not sure which order it was in, but either way, going from that to this, what was that transition like working in this universe already? Was there some nice familiarity there? And then was it nice to work on the smaller scale?
Yeah, it was kind of it was interesting. We actually did them in the opposite order. So like the two productions were running concurrently.
Hmm.
But for me personally, I was on Dream Productions first, and then rolled off of that straight on to Inside Out 2, which was um, I don't know. It was kind of this cool collaboration between the two productions because Inside Out 2 is very high profile feature film. Dream is more of kind of like untested waters. Like this is they're doing a kick at the can of like series content format for Disney Plus, right? So they're trying to figure out what's the easiest way to navigate that and get that put out and still keep like the quality bar up to like the standards that Pixar would expect, right?
Yeah,
So there's this like interesting collaboration happening between the two productions where they're able to share resources back and forth. Um, Feedback from one would be carried over to the other, then they also have their own kind of like separate elements that kind of make them more specific to each other.
hmm
But the one thing that was kind of cool was it was almost like I think I was on Dream for 6 months or so, and so I was working on that, and by the end of that, I had like a pretty good feel for the characters, and like I got to spend a bit of time animating the Inside Out characters like Joy and everybody as well. So it was almost like that was my training ground because I had not animated those characters before. And then once I finished that, I was able to roll on to Inside Out 2, and I was already primed and ready to kind of hit the ground running, right? So I think it kind of negated some of that ramp up time that you would need to kind of familiarize yourself with the characters and the style and everything. So like that was I would say probably one of the big advantages of having both of those shows going on at the same time.
That's great. And I love that. And I love how you say, like, you got to get a feel for these characters and work with them. So it leads me into my next question. I'm curious, you got to work on these characters. Which one were you always like really excited to work on, or which one did you find yourself relating to the most?
In Dream, my favorite was Jean. The She's like the head of the
Yeah.
studio,
Yeah.
voiced by Maya Rudolph. I've animated Maya Rudolph previously on other shows, like at other studios,
Hmm.
and I really she has like a great voice, I think, for animation.
She
So I was
does.
happy
Got
to
a great
be
voice.
yeah, I was really happy to be animating her again. But then, like early on in Dream, I did a bunch of Jean shots that were pretty well received. Where some of the shots where she's kind of sitting behind her desk
Hmm.
in the studio, and she's like really getting crazy and over the top. So like that was pretty fun to take her to like this extreme level of being a bit nuts. And they were really happy with the way that those shots turned out. So after that, they put me on some other Jean shots because I kind of felt like I had figured her out.
That's good.
Yeah, so I was able to keep working with Jean and then just keep pushing her and stuff. And it was a pretty rewarding. It was a rewarding experience.
That's great to hear. And Maya Rudolph, like you said, she's got a great voice for animation. So like you really have to bring that to life in animation. The fact that they like
Yeah,
that, that's great to hear. You got to bring that personality into animation. It's not easy to do for a lot of actors, but
exactly. Yeah.
exactly. So There's a lot of great dreams in this series. In the 4 episodes, we see a lot in 4 episodes. It's actually pretty crazy how much is packed in
Mhm.
there. Even if you didn't work on it, what was your favorite dream sequence in the entire series?
Oh, I there was one that I thought was pretty funny. Was the one, it was like kind of like a gothic 80s like arty dance thing, which I thought was like, it just kind of like came out of left field, and I was like, oh man, this is hilarious. So
It
like
is a
that
great
was
one.
funny. And then like a lot of the stuff, like I really liked a lot of the Canadian boyfriend humor that they jammed in there.
It
Like
was
there's so
awesome.
much Canadian humor, which as a Canadian working remotely from Burlington, I can appreciate. And a bunch of my friends, like I have friends in Vancouver and Alberta that were also working remotely from there. So any of the dream stuff that involved Canadian boyfriend was like kind of like next level funny for us.
Yeah, it was great. And that actually kind of leads me into my next question. I really want to talk about the Canadian boyfriend episode because that's my favorite episode
Yeah.
of the entire series. And, as a Canadian yourself, and even for me myself, I'm watching the episode and I'm doing like, I'm pointing everything like, I know what this means. I know what this means.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, being like, did you provide any input on some of maybe the Canadian jokes or the Canadian stereotypes? You or any of your fellow animators? Could you tell me a bit about working on that episode?
So I think like in general, there's quite a few Canadians who work at Pixar.
Mhm.
Because like in Oakville here in Ontario, right, we have Sheridan College, which like
Yep.
has like it's like very well known for producing high level like animators and animation directors and stuff. So a lot of those people now are working at Pixar.
Great.
And so I think like there's an element of that that kind of trickles into a lot of what they do. So you'll find Canadian jokes here and there that other people might not get them, but then like for us in particular, we'll catch and be like, oh, I see what you did there, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like for this one in particular, like I was animating some of the sequences with Canadian Boyfriend, but in terms of like writing, I wasn't really involved with that.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced there had to be like some people involved in like the series writing who come from Canada,
Oh, for
like
sure.
where else are you gonna pick up like the kind of like Tim Hortons jokes and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
That or like I walked 5,000 kilometers to tell you this.
Yeah.
But I always wondered, like for the animators, I always wondered like they had to put some like visual jokes in there or something because I swear I saw a couple Timbits in there somewhere. I swear I saw some stuff, but
Oh
it's a
yeah.
great episode. It's a great episode. For you as Rob, if you could pick any director ever to direct your own dreams, who would you pick?
Oh, well, that's hard. My own dreams. I don't know. Maybe I'd go with like James Cameron or something. I don't know.
Oh, keeping it Canadian, I like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It's a local guy. Well, he's from I think what Sarnia or Windsor or something originally. I can't
Yeah, yeah,
remember.
yeah. My
But
mom, someone she actually taught with, grew up next to James Cameron.
oh
So
wow, that's
yeah,
cool.
little Jimmy Cameron.
Yeah, I'm a big Terminator 2 fan, so
Great
I think
movie.
that would be pretty cool. I'd love to have some dreams that are just a James Cameron action sequence.
That's great. I would love that too. Who wouldn't? And to follow up on that as well, something I love that we see in dream productions is how these dreams impact you in the real world. So I'm curious, is there a dream you vividly remember having that had some sort of impact on you?
Oh, an impact on me. Well, oh, that's hard. I don't know. I can't like I have such a hard time even remembering my dreams these days. I find as I've gotten older, I dream less, or I kind of like they're not like as prevalent as they were when I was younger.
Hmm.
Which I don't know. That maybe says something about me that I should probably look deeper into. But one thing that I have noticed is recently, as a father with a daughter who is a little bit younger than Riley,
Hmm.
I'm seeing a lot of parallels between Riley's experiences and my daughter's experiences.
Hmm.
And one story that I've been kind of telling recently is that I think just like within the last couple of weeks, she had a dream that kind of freaked her out, where she was wearing a dress or something that in the dream that she was like totally embarrassed by, and her friends were laughing at her. And I couldn't believe how closely it paralleled Riley in Dream, right? Because this is something that she's going through almost the exact same kind of scenario. So for me, it kind of hits home how like a lot of the stuff that we see in these films is like rooted in it comes from a very real place, and
Hmm.
like I'm kind of seeing my daughter living a parallel experience.
That's great. And one last thing before I go out, I gotta ask you, if you could take any Pixar character and see how their dream productions go on in their brain, which Pixar character would it be?
Oh, let's think. Um, what's what show would I go with? I'm trying to figure out which show I would stick with. Um, that's a hard one. I don't know. Maybe maybe it'd be interesting to see what's going on in the head of one of the fishes from like Finding Nemo,
That
or
would be
like,
interesting. I
or
would like
like you
that.
know, or like the seagulls, right? Like they
Yes,
just they seem so brain dead. I'd be so curious to see what's going on in their head.
that would be great.
Yeah.
It was great talking to you again. Thank you so much. I really do
Yeah,
appreciate this.
it was
And one
great
more,
to see you again.
yeah, and I just got to say, I saw the Nine poster behind you. I love
Oh,
Nine. It's one of the most underappreciated animated movies of the 21st century. I love that movie so much. I just had to bring that up quickly.
it's funny. I whenever I'm in Pixar reviews, like with other artists and stuff, and they
Mhm.
see that in the background, I get similar comments where they're like, "Oh, it's like it's kind of like a cult film that went under the
It
radar and
is.
stuff." So yeah, yeah, I
It is.
worked on that here in Toronto. A lot
That's
of most of the
awesome.
animation for that was done here.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much for talking to me again. It's great seeing you.
Thank you. It's good to
Thank
see you
you.
again.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye bye.